Hi Legion, John Hittler, co-founder of Evoking Genius and co-creator of the Genius Discovery Process, with another edition of Pure Genius. Hey, how do you ensure that you're at your best in key or stressful situations? Wow, how do you guarantee that when you have a big presentation or a key client call that you show up fully engaged mind, body, and spirit instead of nervous, or afterwards you say, gosh, I wish I would have said something different. We've all had that experience, haven't we? Well, I coach CEOs, entrepreneurs, and team leaders to create lasting behavior change by making transformation safer and more attractive than standing still. What if we give you some transformative practices for engaging your body and mind more creatively when things get rough? Would that be helpful? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down what literally happens biologically with your body and your brain when stress or surprise or an immediate attention getter hits in your desk. You go, well, we have an angry client and they're on the line and you need to take it. Oh, what happens biologically? What happens to your brain? And how do you become better in those situations? That's what we're going to take on today. Want to play? Great. Let's spin the big wheel. So, I speak a lot. I have to speak, well, I speak for these sorts of videos. I prepare. It's no different standing in front of a camera than it is standing in front of an audience or a team of 30 or 40. Typically, here's what it looks like. I've got an audience of a few hundred or maybe 1,000, sometimes as many as 3,000. I'm supposed to go on stage. Now let me ask you a question. If you're in the audience, do you get nervous right before I come on stage? What? No, I'm in the audience. No. The whole world could care less that my body goes into kind of a pre-speaking trauma or mild shock. But you talk to speakers and they'll tell you, yeah, they have stage fright, or they get nerves, or they get sweaty palms. There's all kinds of things that happen. And the funny thing is, nobody except the speaker cares. Ah, that's funny. So this preoccupation with ourselves is innately human. Well, you have it too. You've got to present in front of a team meeting or a big presentation to the leadership group or whatnot. Well, before I speak, we're going, more typically, I'll have to go into a team engagement. 30, 35 people in a team. When I show up with my partner, generally speaking, we'll hear terms like, oh boy, the cops are here, or the narcs are here. Oh, really nice. Really nice that that's the way we're held. But the truth is, if we're there, they know they're in for a challenging day. Now, they don't know that we're going to make it fun and interesting. They're going to learn a ton and come out feeling great on the other end. They think of it and say, if they're here, that means HR has given up on us and they've outsourced our team or our team development to these guys. We're kind of the heavy hitters. I don't mind that. I kind of like it. But we're not warmly received. So you can imagine before we start, it's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little awkward. Because it's two of us, 35 of them. They wonder what's going to go on. And they wonder how mean and ugly we're going to be. And we're wondering, gosh, there's 35 of them. Kind of an angry mob. They're not angry, but that's the way it feels. And your body goes into a kind of shock. Let me see if you notice, or let me recognize if you notice any of these signs before you have to do this. Before you have to lead a big PowerPoint presentation, or you have to present in front of your largest client, or you've got a conference breakout and you're in charge of it. How about, do you get sweaty palms? How about dry mouth, or what I call salty mouth? You all of a sudden you can't speak and you get like a salty taste in the back of your mouth. You go, wow, why am I suddenly sweating more than I do, especially sweaty palms? That's weird. And I literally can't talk. I mean, like, for a moment, like my larynx won't work. That's weird. How about butterflies? You just get like what I call butterflies. You get like a nervousness or a queasy sense in your stomach. You go, I don't walk around like that 99% of the time. Why does that happen before I've got to present in front of the board? It's your biological reaction. There's others. Your heart races. How about this one? What I call an anxiety pee. You just use the bed and you go, wow, oh, we're ready? Oh, I need to use the bathroom. Go, didn't you just pee like 10 minutes ago? Your body does weird things when you engage in stress. Well, let's break this down. Let's break it down biologically. So here's where we're going to go. We're going to go to you or your ancient ancestors that lived in caves or forts or jungles, your Paleolithic age you. You good with that? Okay. Now, when you lived in the jungle or in a cave, first of all, this is millions of years ago, and survival was the big thing. The real problem in that era was feeding yourself and your family. We didn't have farming yet, we didn't have agriculture. It was literally hunt and eat, or don't hunt and starve. Oh, okay, pretty simple, a little simpler time. That's okay. But we didn't have language. So that was different. We communicated, but we communicated some with grunts, but mostly with intuition or inferences or what you might call common sense. There were ways to communicate. We did it with pictures and art. We didn't do it with a language as we have today. That came much later in your ancestry and mine. Well, take it, let's say today's a hunting day. We're going to go out and hunt wild boar. Oh, right. That's great. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put it on the spit and we're going to serve it with maybe a black cherry and port wine reduction sauce with a little bit of tarragon or maybe thyme. Oh, it's going to be spectacular. Serve it with some Israeli couscous and organic vegetables. It's going to be fabulous. But enough of that. For now, we just got to, first of all, we got to hunt the boar. We got to be successful in our hunt. So let's say there's two of us. You and me, we're going out on the hunt. Now what do we carry? We carry a spear, because we've got primitive tools, and two things can happen. The wild boar, very fierce animal, with tusks and sharp teeth and big, like heavy, very powerful, can attack us and kill us if we're not careful. Or we can team really well, and we can hunt the boar and eat beautiful, spit-roasted wild pig tonight with that black cherry and port wine reduction. I'll give you the recipe for that later. The Caveman all knew it, but we'll share that a little bit later. It's one of the two. Now remember, we don't have language. We're cave people, so language hasn't really evolved yet in the human development. So there's three parts of the brain, one of which, I'll point these out, what we call the neocortex. Now we use that. You're going to use that in Silicon Valley or New York City or Dallas or Chicago. You're especially going to use it when you're presenting, because this is the part of the brain that has language, logic, and analysis or analytical thinking skills. Very helpful for bringing forth a presentation or speaking to a large group of people. Not so useful or needed when you're hunting boar. You don't really need that. You don't have to do analysis out there and say, there's 16 people in our tribe. If we hunt a 324-pound pig and there's some waste once we skin it and take the guts out, how many pounds per person should we allot and what's the price we should pay or what should we trade with? None of that. You didn't have any analysis. It was literally, can we kill a boar today? Can we eat for the next 3 or 4 days by killing a boar? That's all the analytical thought we needed. It was really succeed or fail, or what we might call flight or fight. Okay, that all happens in the neocortex, the language, the logic, and the analysis. That's much later in the development of human beings. Well, there's also the limbic brain. Now this part we use a lot today, but we don't realize when we're using it so much. We put far more emphasis on the neocortex because we like logic and rational thinking. Cavemen they didn't do that. they did use the limbic brain. The limbic brain houses emotion, and especially what I call emotional memories and sensory perception. And when I say sensory perception, what I mean is, if you got burned, let's say you were burned as a child on your forearm, you hold the memory. You don't hold the memory like tell the story like you tell a joke. You hold that memory in your arm. It resides actually in the limbic part of your brain, but when somebody grabs your forearm, that's when the memory comes up immediately, because they touched an emotionally sensitive part of your body. We see this in burn victims or abuse victims. You see it a lot. They will react very suddenly and immediately when you touch them in a place where they've got especially unpleasant physical, usually abuse or burn memories. That's all housed in the limbic part of the brain. Well, the cavemen use this as well. This is the same part of your brain that when you walk into a room and you know something's not right, but you don't know what it is, you can't language it, you can't justify it or rationalize it. But you say, something's not right here. And you kind of scan the room and you say, what is going on here that I'm not being told? Now this could happen with your family, or this could happen at a social function, and it's the same thing that says, I don't trust that person. I don't know what it is, but every cell in my body says not to trust this person. That comes from your limbic brain. It's not rational, it's not defendable, it's not logical. That's your neocortex. But it's generally accurate, because your limbic brain is way more sensory and way more sensitive and, if you will, wise than is your ability to defend it. So the cavemen have this, so do we. Oh great, so we're as good as our cavemen in this part. And the last part is the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain simply is the fight or flight. This is the survival part of the brain. We still have this. And aren't we amazed when in today's society you see a video online and somebody yanks somebody out of a burning car or a burning building, or there's an onrushing train and a car is stalled on the tracks and somebody has literally no time to figure it out, and their instinct says, oh, somebody's going to die here? Pull them out of the car and drag them to safety, when really the smart thing to do would be to get the heck out of the way, and if that person dies, oh well, but don't take the chance of two people dying trying to rescue another. And we see these online and we are amazed by them, and we call that person a hero. Because when they could have run, they actually stayed, and generally that's not a conscious decision. That's an instinct that says, move right now. Wow, we're really impressed with that. The cavemen had this too. They know, they can tell by the movements of the wild boar, do we run like hell, or climb a tree, or somehow take cover, or do we continue to pursue the hunt? They have instincts for knowing that, and they know when to fight, and they know when to run. That's all part of the reptilian brain. Well, so now let's go back to your speaking engagement, or your big presentation, or let's say you're you're setting up your fantasy football picks this week on your work computer, and you don't realize that your supervisor or your boss or your teammate walked behind you while you're gainfully employed making strategic picks for this week's fantasy football league. Oh, the same thing happens. Whether you're ready to walk on stage for a big group, or walk into a conference room and present to your largest client, or lead an off-site retreat, or whether you just got caught a little bit off guard while you're fully engaged in fantasy football instead of something more productive, the same thing happens biologically that happened to the cavemen. Here's what it is. Firstly, blood stops flowing to the neocortex. Now remember, the neocortex is the part that has language, logic, and analysis. Oh, and analytical skills. Do the cavemen need that to hunt a boar? No, doesn't bother them a bit. But do you need it when you're ready to start your PowerPoint presentation to your largest client and you've flown and you're going to spend 2 days with them, the last thing you need is for blood to stop flowing to the part of the brain that has all of the skills that you need to make a great presentation, namely speech and language. Oh my goodness, that's not good, but it's biological. You're not going to stop that from happening. This is how we've evolved as humans. Simply, our neocortex works much better than it used to, but not based on biology. When things get nervous or stressful, blood stops flowing there. Oh my goodness, that's not good. What happens? Where does that blood go? Well, it stops flowing to 2 places. The neocortex, it'll keep going to the reptilian and the limbic brain, but it stops going to the neocortex. Not good. It also stops flowing to your digestive system. It goes to your large muscle groups. Now think back to the boar. We're standing out there with our spear, ready to go. Where do we want most of our blood flow and our oxygen? We want them in our arms and legs so that we're physically as strong as we can be, especially if we have to make a good run for it. It biologically makes great sense. When you're presenting, you don't need a ton of physical strength. You need mental agility. You've got cotton mouth, sweaty palms, heart beating, and a salty taste in the back of your mouth. That's not so helpful. For the cavemen, it doesn't affect them very much. They're ready to go because they're hunting. You're hunting for a sale, they're hunting for boar. Theirs is physical, yours requires mental agility. But the biology that happens in your body affects you in a way that won't hurt the caveman. Oh, wow. Right when you didn't need it, you don't get blood to the right part of your brain. Crazy. So we'll put this up on the board, or we'll put this up on the screen so you can see it, but take a peek here. So if you look at it, the green part is the neocortex. Who cares where it's located? There won't be a quiz. But the green part is that neocortex. That's where you stop getting blood. Oh no! And then the limbic part is the yellow part. You still have sensory perception, you still have memory, and in fact, you might be having a traumatic memory created at that moment when your language doesn't work and you're starstruck and your heart's beating and you freeze, and somebody asks a simple question and you're like, stuck. It doesn't take that long to kick out of it, but in that moment, it's embarrassing. Well, your limbic brain's going to work just fine. And your reptilian brain, as much as you want to run and hide, you can't. You know you can't. So you've got to fight, don't you? So 2 parts of your brain are working just fine because they're getting the blood flow. 1 part's not working very well, and your biology is fighting against you. The blood is going to the wrong part of your body. You don't need physical strength in your outer extremities. You don't need to run. You need mental agility. Well, if you look at this brain piece, you can see why. The blood literally stops flowing under stress. Now, what kind of stress does it stop flowing under? What we call eustress. EU stress. Now, not EU stress like European Union. That's a different kind of stress. That's the stress brought on by European socialists trying to sell us a bill of goods. That's totally different. But eustress is what I call creative stress. It's actually proactive. It engages you in your best activity. So you say, oh, I love a great challenge. Oh, I love a puzzle, or I love a tough problem to sink my teeth into. It actually engages your brain and keeps you young. It's actually a fabulous trigger for the body to kick in mind, body, and spirit. It's called eustress. Distress is the stress that literally ages us. And that's the kind that's kicking in at least temporarily right now until you get your blood flowing. But distress usually comes from having a tension or problem that you either cannot or will not do anything about. So I'll give you a quick example. You've got teenage kids who you know are experimenting with alcohol, and they've got the car out on a Friday night. What do you do until they get home and they're safe, and you lock the door and they're safe for the day? It's very stressful, because you go, you know what, they're at a party, chances are there's alcohol there. They said they won't drink and drive, but how can I be really sure until I know they're home safely? There's not a whole lot you can do once they've left the house in your car. So you had to do something either earlier and say, you know what, take a cab or take Uber, or don't go, or somehow prevent the situation from occurring in the first place. But once they're gone on a Friday night, you go, it's very stressful. That kind of stress over time literally puts you in the grave. It kills you. Okay, we don't want that kind of stress. Temporarily though, that's what's happening when the blood doesn't flow to your brain and you are up there and you're a deer in the headlights. Recognize that? Great. So you see where it shows up on our brain chart. So how do we deal with this? Well, if no blood flows to the neocortex for the caveman, they still kill the boar, ideally, drag home a very heavy beast, cook it up, and their cave woman, I say girlfriend? I don't know what it is, because they didn't have marriage. They hadn't invented marriage yet. Probably because lawyers weren't around. I don't know. But they didn't have divorce lawyers, so why get married in the first place? That's my guess. But you drag it home and you share it with the bounty with the tribe or the group, and you're a hero because you used your talents to kill the boar and cook it up and check. You probably went online and got recipes for wild boar and then did all that stuff. I'm sure that's what the cavemen did. And then you're a hero. Well, that's help. It doesn't hurt you that your neocortex gets no blood. When you're in front of your best clients, or leading a team meeting, or asked to speak in front of a group, it's a big stress or distress, at least temporarily, not to have any blood flowing, and have blood flowing to the wrong parts of the body that give you sweaty palms, or dry mouth, or a salty taste in the back of your mouth, or literally not to be able to speak temporarily. Not helpful. Well, let's give you some remedies. So if we understand what's going on, that it's just biology, let's use biologically based remedies to get you back and connected as quickly as possible. You ever watch post-game or sideline interviews with players or coaches? Usually with players, and they'll say, how are your nerves, or what was that first series, or what was that first minute, or what was it like taking the field in the championship game? Oftentimes they'll say, I was so focused, I don't even remember it. But once we got going and I touched the ball, or I got running, or once I got into the flow of the game, or the first series, everything was just fine. Classic. That's exactly what happens. Biologically, they need to engage their brain and their body, not just their body, and then fine. They literally will say, I didn't even hear the crowd after that. Then it was just game on, we went and played. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to give you the remedies. So here's the first remedy. Biologically, how do you get blood flowing as quickly as possible back to your neocortex? Because if it doesn't for 30 seconds or 45 seconds at the beginning of your presentation, your first impression is that you're nervous, you're not very polished, you're not ready to go, even though you're fully ready to go. Oh, we need your biology to help your brain. So here's some simple ones. Before you start, if you have a chance, gently walk. Now, why gently walk? You don't need to run wind sprints or get your heart rate flowing. Your heartbeat's going to be already elevated. What you need to do, it'll actually calm you down a little. It will have blood flow to all of your body, including your brain, not just allow the biology or the nerves to take over and flow to the wrong parts of your body. So if you gently walk, it engages the lymph nodes and has the body flow more freely all throughout the body, mostly to your brain. It'll help that process. No one will be able to see you do the second one, but here's the second one. Take a fist and just, usually at your side, you're not going to do it in front of people, but when your hands are at your side, just gently squeeze like a fist. You can do it with both hands, and when you do, ever give blood? And right before they prick you, I don't know about you, as pale white as I am, I consider myself to be translucent, not really white, but I get whiter, if that's possible, or if that's believable. I even get whiter when I give blood because I don't like needles. I don't like getting pricked. And they usually say there's going to be a slight prick here. That's the brain's message to my body to go into mild shock, and I get like lightheaded, and I stop breathing a little bit. I go paler. I won't say pale because I'm already pale. I go paler, white. Literally what happens is my body goes into mild shock. What do they tell you when you're giving blood? They give you that little squeezy ball, that little soft squeezy ball, and say, squeeze that a couple times, please. They got the tourniquet on your arm to create a little bit of buildup and pressure. But when they're ready to prick you, you actually shut down your blood flow a little bit. That's not helpful for them. It's not good for you either. So they say, squeeze the ball a couple of times, and you do. And then they say, okay, stop squeezing. And then they release that rubber tourniquet on your arm, and then you're good. Once the prick is in there and the setup is going, you kind of don't look at it, and you're good to go, and you relax. Your body relaxes. But there's 30 seconds there where they'll ask you, you okay? Or when you're done, they'll say, you want to stay here and lie down, or do you need a glass of water, or sometimes they give you juice and cookies or whatever. But they need to get you back out of the mild shock that they put you in by pricking you with a needle. No different than when you're speaking. Nobody's going to prick you with a needle, but it's metaphorically the same thing. You go into mild shock. So if you squeeze either one or both of your fists just a little bit, it gets the blood flowing, and again, it gets the lymph nodes reactivated, which is really helpful to get all systems in your brain and body working. So that's the second one. Third one, rehearse like know 'em down pat, like somebody could wake you out of a dead sleep and you could start your presentation, no problem. Rehearse just the beginning, because the truth is you know what you're going to talk about. You know how good you'll be. If the dangerous part is when there's no blood flowing for the first 10, 15, 30 seconds, if you know, like you could tell your first story or your opening or your welcoming, no problem, that's good, because you need to buy yourself enough time before your body relaxes enough to get everything moving again. So have your opening down really, really pat. You're going to practice or rehearse, especially for a presentation. You're going to do that anyhow, but have your opening down pat. That's a really good strategy. 4, sip. Don't guzzle water. People say, I'm really thirsty all of a sudden. That's your mouth is thirsty, and the reason is your digestive system shuts down. It literally, your body shuts it down, because you don't need your digestion system when you're hunting boar and you might have to run. It's actually not useful. So the body purposefully and automatically, what I'll say biologically, shuts that system down. When it does, that's where the larynx and the back of the neck and your shoulder muscles get tight, and you get the dry mouth. All of a sudden you're not getting saliva because your digestive system doesn't work. You don't need to guzzle a bunch of water, because now what the risk is, you've got a 45-minute or an hour presentation, and now you're going to have to pee in the middle of it because you guzzled a bunch of water because you think you were thirsty. Your saliva will come back because your hydration is fine. Sip water or swish it around your mouth. Just take a gulp, swish it all around your mouth and swallow it. Then you're getting a little bit of hydration and just moistening. You're artificially giving your body some moisture in your mouth that usually would come from saliva. Very helpful, and it'll get you going. It'll get you through those first 30 or 45 seconds, and then your digestion system will kick back in and you'll produce saliva again, and you'll be just fine. But you don't want to guzzle water, just sip a little water before you start. The other one is stretch. I said walk a little. If there's a spot off to the side or before you enter the room or whatnot to stretch, again, it's a muscle thing, and you don't need tons of stretching like yoga, but it engages your blood flow. It gets it going again, and when blood flows, eventually it's going to flow to the brain. So even though stretching is not a cerebral event, it'll get the blood flowing. That's the 5th one, is to stretch. These are all very simple things, and they're biological. Remember, all we're trying to do is get your brain up to speed with your body, because your body is in a reptilian mode and you need to be in a neocortex mode. It's the difference between us and your ancient relatives and mine. So those are some things. Well, how do we know that this works? Oh, what do you mean, how do you know this? How do you know that the neuroscience and the biology works? Well, only recently scientists have started to measure high performance, like gold medal winning athletes. What they've done is they've hooked them up to brain nodes and also biological, like heart rate and all that other stuff. What's the difference between a gold medal winner and a high performer that didn't quite make it? Well, scientists now believe that it's brain function. That the gold medal winning athletes, the ones that are 1/100th or 2/100ths faster than the bronze medalist or the person that came in fifth place, are engaging significantly more of their brain than are the 5th or 6th place finishers. Interesting. Well, in the 50s, it was commonly believed that human beings would not survive if they attempted to run a mile under 4 minutes. Like, we kind of think of that as ludicrous today, but they didn't think the body could endure the physical duress of running that fast for that long. They knew you could sprint for a little bit, but essentially a 4-minute mile was a 4-minute sprint. And Roger Bannister finally broke the 4-minute mile, I think in 1959, it was the end of the 50s, and he broke it by half a second or a second. And when he did, he proved that it's physically possible. So nowadays we don't usually run the mile, we run 1,500 meters, I believe, is the Olympic standard, or the world standard, and it's a little bit more than a mile. But anybody that's even reasonably competitive could run a mile in under 4 minutes in this day and age if you're a good Olympic runner. Oh, well, in that distance, it's not a sprinter, but a mile man or a woman or a 1,500 meter person. It's common. Well, it's only been recently that they realized that those same athletes that are high performers, they're engaging their brain when everyone else's biological response, you think about it, you have to run 100 meters in the Olympics against Usain Bolt, the world's fastest human. When you step into the blocks, you can imagine that you're nervous, you're anxious, you've got to get off to a quick start, there's no way you could win unless you get off to a great start. The actual run, the 9.5 seconds or 9.6 seconds or whatever it is these days, isn't as difficult as great start, concentration. Well, if you engage your brain, like literally let the blood flow to your brain, it makes you faster. Interesting. You'd think, well, doesn't anything. Who's the fastest? When you engage a higher percentage of your brain, and they've now shown that Olympic athletes engage as much as 40% of their brain, when you and I, when we're just doing regular tasks, engage between 7 and 10%. So that's 4 times as much of our brain power. It actually helps our muscles perform better. It makes sense, but they've only just begun to study this. And so now they're starting to train athletes in the mental part of the game much more than they used to. Before it was how much weight can you lift and can we physically push you to the limits. But essentially we've pushed all records close to what a human body, any human body, is capable of. It's going to have to be the breakthroughs come through mental. Just like you. So it's no different. We need your brain to kick in at a higher percentage use than just 10% when you're under stress. Great. Let's do that proactively by engaging your biology to kick your neocortex into gear and utilize your limbic brain at its fullest so you engage with the group on an emotional level as well. It's fully possible and you can do it. Well, here's the thing. If this is helpful, like and share it with your friends. You'll probably help them because they've got presentations as well. It may be they just want a good recipe for wild boar and what to serve with it. I've got all those. Comment below and I'll send you my wild boar recipe, the one passed on from my ancestors with the dark chocolate, or not dark chocolate, the dark cherries and the port wine reduction sauce. Happy to share that with you if that's all you need. But like and share it with your family and friends because it'll help them. Secondly, I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to be better every day. This is what we call transformation. Transformation is not a big magic wand sort of thing. Transformation is getting better every single day by design. And you're doing that by design. And I acknowledge and honor the courage it takes to do that. It's what I call playing full out. You're playing full out to be better every day and make a difference. Until we meet again on Pure Genius, all the best.